1458 BC. A rebel warlord challenges the might of Egypt. The two greatest armies the ancient world has ever seen are ready to fight. The fate of Egypt lies in the hands of its young pharaoh, who has never before seen battle. If the rebels win, Egyptian civilization will crumble. This is a true story. The chronicle of this epic struggle was carved into the stone walls of the temple of Karnak over 3,500 years ago. It records how a pampered prince was transformed by war and turned his kingdom into an empire. He became Egypt's greatest warrior pharaoh, Thutmose III. For a generation, Egypt's 3 million people have lived in peace and prosperity. Most are farmers and fishermen, living along the fertile banks of the River Nile. Thutmose is a peasant farmer whose family worked this land together. Their life follows the changing seasons. Egyptians marry young. Thutmose's wife is just 16. They expect that one day their children will take over from them and work the fields. But Thutmose's life is about to change. The sacred ibis are an omen of danger. "200 miles away in the capital, Thebes, Queen Hatshepsut, the female pharaoh, is dead. While the country mourns, Egypt's enemies are gathering. The Prince of Kadesh, an embittered Syrian warlord, is whipping up revolt among the tribes of the north. For decades, they have struggled under the yoke of Egypt and her imperial ambitions. With 150 mutinous princes behind him, Kadesh plans to invade Egypt and crush the power of the pharaohs. Egypt is vulnerable. What she needs now is a leader of unswerving courage and tested military skill. But the new pharaoh is Thutmose III. For 20 years, this princeling has been kept from power by his stepmother, Queen Hatshepsut. He has been pampered and indulged, untroubled by the affairs of state. But now he is a king, with a nation to lead. To the Egyptians, he's a living god. His body, a sacred object. But to his enemies, he's simply a young king with no experience of battle and a feeble hold on power. Thutmose comes from a long line of warriors. A century and a half ago, the founders of his dynasty expelled the ancestors of the Prince of Kadesh from northern Egypt. Syrians and Egyptians have struggled for supremacy ever since. But none of Thutmose's ancestors ever faced a military challenge as great as the one that confronts him now. 3,500 years later, this is modern Luxor and the ruins of Thutmose's temple of Karnak. In a narrow passageway, on a wall few visitors will ever notice, there's a long inscription in Egyptian hieroglyphs, carved on the orders of Thutmose himself. It tells the story of his war against the Syrians, which begins in the winter of 1458 BC. Just weeks after taking the throne, Thutmose and his entourage moved from Thebes to the fortress of Jaru, 500 miles north. Jaru is on the Syrian border. It's Egypt's largest garrison and the gateway to the Middle East. The young Thutmose locks himself away with his generals. Jehuti and Jamenej are hardened soldiers, skeptical of the young pharaoh's ability to lead. They have just a few weeks to devise a strategy to defend Egypt's borders. Recording every word of their deliberations is a fourth man, not a soldier, but a scribe, named Geneni. He's been called the world's first war correspondent, and it's his words in ancient Egyptian that are carved into the temple wall at Karnak.
Operan es hu kewi. Iwa autentot endiem ni sharuhan. Sed sha rajan yo feroe diwatau shebet hameth.
The Prince of Kadesh and his allies have gathered at the city of Megiddo, near present-day Jerusalem. Megiddo is now the nerve center of the revolt. Kadesh has persuaded the northern warlords to provide him with every fighting man they have. Under his command is the largest Syrian army ever assembled. He's determined that this time, Egypt will fall.
مولاي الأمير القديس كاين في ماجيدو.
ماجيدو؟
نعم مولاي.
صار.
The intelligence is worse than Thutmose expects, far worse. Megiddo is just 150 miles from Egypt's borders, and Thutmose is heavily outnumbered. He needs more men.
حاج محمد هي اش بغيتي؟ فين ولد؟ ها هما كاين باك صاحبنا واخ مستحقنا ها هما واسميتك انت؟ ها هما علاه اش بغيتي؟ شحال عمرك؟
Conscription is nothing new in Egypt.
شحال عمرك؟
For centuries, peasants have been taken from the land to build canals, temples, and pyramids.
اسميتك انت؟ باقي صغير غادي نديو انا صافي هذاك اللي غنديو لا توني انايا في لاصتو سكتي لا هذاك اللي غنمشي
ما تمشيش
بلاصه الوريد توني انا
But Thutmose is destined for something different.
هذا اللي غنديو
The army.
لا ما يمكنش ما تخليوش يمشي اش كديروا
لا حول ولا قوه الا بالله
لا ما يمشيش
لا حول ولا قوه الا بالله
لا خواتي ما تمشيش
ما نقدرش نخلي خويا ما نقدرش
ما
نخلي
تخلينيش ما تمشيش وحنا وحياتنا لا
غادي
خواتي لا
صافي ما غاديش نمشي
Thutmose knows he may never see his wife and home again. The eye of the hawk god Horus is a magic charm that wards off danger. Every Egyptian is now touched by the threat to the kingdom. Thutmose is just one of thousands of young men herded north to possible death in the struggle against the Syrians. In February 1458 BC, Thutmose and his fellow conscripts reached the fortress of Jaru. The Pharaoh is mustering every fighting man in the kingdom to throw against the Syrian rebels who plan to invade Egypt. Thutmose is a peasant farmer who has never left his village before. He is now going to be made part of the most sophisticated army the world has ever seen. Quartermasters marshal food, weapons, and clothing supplies. Every day, an army of 10,000 men consumes 14 tons of grain and 95,000 liters of water. The wealth of Egypt pours into the war effort. What makes the Egyptian army so formidable is these men. An elite corps of professional soldiers, Nubians from the south, in what is today Sudan. Nakht joined the Pharaoh's army 3 years ago, along with 5 men from his village. His ambition is to rise through the ranks, and he is likely to succeed. Nubians are admired by the Egyptians for their courage, strength, and skills in combat. For men like Nacht, the coming war is an opportunity. There's booty to be had and glory to be won. Other Nubians have become generals and risen to the top of Egyptian society. The most Thutmose can hope for is to get back to his home alive. Raw recruits must be made part of the military machine. This is the job of Egypt's officer class. Yamunej and Jehuti are two of the pharaoh's most trusted generals. They come from very different backgrounds. Jehuti is an aristocrat. Yamunej rose through the ranks. Officers will be equipped with the latest military technology. Ivory-tipped arrows, bows made of imported birch or elm, bound with glue made from fish bladders, as well as the most radical innovation of all, the chariot. A lightweight war machine that brings speed and surprise to the battlefield. The lower ranks will use more basic weaponry, axes, knives, and spears. Nacht is putting the new recruits through their paces. Wrestling is the Egyptians' favorite sport, and in the army, it's a useful test of manhood. Thutmose has made the grade, and the pharaoh's army is in fighting spirit. By April, the Prince of Kadesh is preparing to move the coalition's 10,000 men from Megiddo towards the Egyptian border. Thutmose, the inexperienced leader, has grown in confidence. He won't wait for the Syrians to invade. He won't fight a defensive war. he will invade Syria and crush the rebels at Megiddo. The army will march tomorrow. This momentous decision is recorded by Geneni in his chronicle, inscribed on the walls of the temple of Karnak.
Rampezut moi, te pesho mo soiftu, wadza emseten emkene, nach emutza emachro. Secheret cherewe pefchetsi, sewodzech tatchukene.
But to reach Megiddo, the army faces a grueling march of 200 miles across the deserts of Sinai and Gaza. Geneni the scribe is part of the campaign. He's here to record the pharaoh's exploits and guarantee Thutmose a place in history. Geneni is not interested in the hardships of foot soldiers, such as Thutmose and Nacht. But this 1,000-year-old papyrus, discovered in a tomb in Luxor, tells us what life was like for the ordinary soldier on campaign in Syria.
Sutahum ercharu, bisirif ifsu, bunhubsu tubtu, inaf mash'u irqai tasu. زويف محرخمت انهورو إيوشانس ميداباي حاماي ستخاتف وحيو إخامف دجاتف حافقانف باتف سقابي ومشو.
At first, the army makes rapid progress. In the first 10 days, it covers 150 miles. Then the heat takes its toll. The pace slows from 15 miles a day to 5. Three weeks later, and the troops have crossed the Gaza Strip and the hills of Canaan. They're camped deep inside Syrian territory at Yacham, in present-day Israel. The soldiers are exhausted, and their thoughts turn towards home. Thutmose, like every Egyptian, is terrified of dying outside his native land. If he's buried in foreign soil, without his family to tend his grave, he'll have no chance of reaching the afterlife. If he dies here, his spirit will be cast into oblivion, and he'll face a second death. And perhaps Thutmose, despite his status as a god, is troubled by the very same thought. He's just 30 miles from Megiddo and the rebel army, and now he must make a decision. The choice he makes will dictate his future and the fate of Egypt.
باش نتفاداو هاد المشاكل انا كنقترح عليكم باش نوريكم الخريطه الطريق اللي خصنا ندوزو معها.
The young pharaoh now faces the most important decision of his campaign. Geneni records the discussion with his generals. For the first time in his account, We hear Thutmose' own words as he spoke them 3,500 years ago.
خروي بفكيشي نكاريشو يو اك ارمكتو سو امو امتات سحوين فنا خورون يخاصو نيم ونو حمو لكيامه إن شائر نهرنا سسموس المشاسن.
Surprise is the key. Reach Megiddo quickly, catch the Syrians unawares, and they could crush the rebellion in a single strike.
هناك خصنا نمشي.
From their camp at Yacham, there are 3 routes to Megiddo.
هو الجيش ديالنا ما يقدرش يتحمل المصاعب ديال هذا.
Through Yokneam,
الطريق هذه قريبة.
north of Mount Carmel.
إنما المشكل ديالها هو أنها تعرضوا لبزاف ديال الأخطار.
South through Tanakh, approaching Megiddo from the southeast.
وكيبقى الاقتراح ديالك هو الاقتراح.
These are the safest routes, but also the longest. There is a third approach, the Aruna Pass, a narrow gorge that snakes through the mountains. It's the most direct and the most dangerous. For hours on end, the army would be exposed to ambush. They'll take the Aruna Pass. The generals think the young pharaoh is wrong. Janeni records their words.
سمي أخ شمت حمتين بين انتي وو الحنس يو تحرس ميت أجيو خيرو إمو أغا حر إبار إن يو تحية إمو حر حاحا يونا إن بخوي أغيا إم أرونا
أونيخ ناي مروي إرا حسو تيوتي أمون يواتشا حمي حرمين جنبه أرونا إميشا أنت ليبا في موجة حرنا الماجيان جودا جوين ميك كاسن إمنا خير وبوترا إن يو حمف وجهر كي مجن يوفا أرسنة جنان كاسن
وين الباك إنسان نقف
أمو إنحيمو مجن ناخد نجوان جن نمتخد
يلا نشوف راسك.
أمون
But has Thutmose signed the army's death warrant? On the 14th of May, Thutmose leads his army into the Aruna Pass. "10,000 men must march in single file through the narrow gorge, utterly exposed. For 12 hours, they are open to attack from above.
حتى السلامة وصافي كتشري راه مطلوب
قاعد ناقص لي يديروا الدار باقا المدافع
الله يحفظه صافي
مولاي لقد سلك فرعون
But the Syrian ambush never comes.
طريق القارون.
Kadesh has been outwitted. He expected to ambush the Egyptians on the southern route to Megiddo. Now his troops are in the wrong place. All he can do is scramble back to Megiddo. Six hours later, Thutmose is within sight of the Syrian stronghold.
ورونم نخاسو محتاج تبو إن فوينف محبو إن ديمي خا بامح المجدو.
Tomorrow, for the first time, Thutmose will lead his men into battle. Here at Karnak is Jineni's eyewitness account of the final minutes before the Battle of Megiddo. It's the 15th of May, 1458 BC.
Rampes yut cheme, te pesho mosus yut wa. Katni su teptua ezet redi, huni metcha edzeref sesh. Udza hemef hewereret nitza savu yemenoev nuarachet. Mehor jemaneb yerchet.
Thutmose anoints his peasant soldiers with sacred perfume to bring down the gods' blessings on them in battle. The real test has come. Jineni describes the Egyptian positions.
Paduveretsi ni pamechane heme, eturetsi hecheno nikina. Padubi mehti yapti mekit. Yul heme, em helebsen, amun em sahu hawayef.
Kadesh too is ready. Egyptians and Syrians face each other at last. Syrian bodies drop around him, Kadesh's dreams of conquest evaporate.
Ma'ayasen Hamef, Esechem Eros Yusen, Heyefedi Kebkibi, Meketi, Honisenet, Hanusen, Sesmusen, Weretsen. Hutusen Tibetan, Hupsusen and Diempen. Is it Khataman Nayan Rumet Diempeneros, Hanusen Hepsue, Tibetan, Set Here Diempen.
All Kadesh can do is save his own skin. The Egyptians have victory within their grasp, but they let it slip through their fingers. Instead of attacking the city, they loot the bodies of their Syrian enemies. It's the common soldier's chance to enrich himself, but it's a military disaster. Janeni's account condemns the foot soldiers for their greed.
Ezit, Haner Mechane Hamefredi Lepsen. Ehak Nayen Chetue Enayen Cherewe Yusen. Ehak Mekete Emtat. Ahayen Haxis Mutese. Werets Nebu heads Eruem Hak. Sekusensetzer Emsetzi. Mimirumu, Kahshinu, Metchanachet, Nihemef, Hehopchetu Eru.
The Egyptians measure their success by collecting severed hands. But this is not yet a victory.
أنت شوف صب معايا واحد جوج
لب نيجي نيونيا يبرم لب
شوف
أحمد ما يدول
Has the greed of the foot soldiers been the Egyptians' undoing? The Pharaoh's generals are in disgrace. It was their job to take Megiddo. Instead, they stood by while their own soldiers plundered.
حكون فرحان داباك حكم درتوها زوينة داباك رنوينا منيو نخت مكرت ياني انتو مكراه ورون يخاسو نحتي محتيانف رنتت كابا مح المجدو خرجوا عليا
Thutmose will now have to starve the Syrians into submission. No one knows how many Egyptians fell at the Battle of Megiddo. The Egyptian military documents keep quiet on the subject of their own casualties. What we do know is how Egyptian surgeons treated the wounded. This papyrus is the world's oldest medical textbook. It gives detailed descriptions of treatments for battle injuries. Raw meat, with its natural blood-clotting agents, is used on flesh wounds. Burns are treated with a mixture of gum, ram's hair, and the milk of a breastfeeding woman. But despite the doctor's best efforts, most of the wounded in this field hospital will die from infection within days. Another ancient text sums up the fate of many Egyptian soldiers.
توتو حيرتت بيسا إرواعو بمونح إرميقا بشيري توتو حرس خابرف إرناحمف أمخاني الموتف سابرف إرورامي إيو قاسني وشواش
أحموزي بورتا فمولو تي جيني نده داني جاكو دي نياخي دين تي جيني نيول دينا جاكو جاكو دي أحموزي 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 أحموزي
For 7 months, Thutmose holds Megiddo under siege. Finally, in December 1458 BC, a symbol of surrender. These are the children of the Syrian warlords, offered to Thutmose in a gesture of submission. The Syrian revolt is over. The children will be taken to Egypt as hostages and killed if their families rebel again. Some are destined to become puppet rulers within Thutmose's new Egyptian empire. Thutmose returns to his capital, Thebes, in triumph. No one doubts his strength now.
urunu khasuten hikhentuero. Esen tabu hamef. Etebehtaw Jesusen. Eni akhopeshef enurubaw amun ikhansunem. Ezet urunem hehuwe hamef. Khiar enusen emhet nebu. Shishen mefkat shishe rokit menement. Awat natmet shani hamef. Watket emusa khiar enu emkhentet.
The final words of Jineni's chronicle are those of the defeated enemy, the Prince of Kadesh.
نيو حمن إريبونا همو خباغا هنا خجات باينا ام أهاو النئونا جيران تدمان الباوف الرديان خنان طاو امير
Over the next 20 years, the Pharaoh Thutmose III fought and won another 17 campaigns. At the time of his death and mummification in 1425 BC, he had imposed Egyptian rule across an empire that extended, he claimed, as far as the circuit of the sun. Jineni's eyewitness account of the Battle of Megiddo set a standard of military heroism for every pharaoh who followed. As Thutmose intended, he is still remembered today as Egypt's greatest warrior pharaoh.
Ancient Egyptians continues at the same time next Thursday. Details coming up. For adults or children, these highly illustrated titles are available in the shops now. To order, call 0870 1234 344 or click onto channel4.com/shop. V. Graham Norton is V. Close. In fact, it's next.